Hi, the purpose of this video is to give you a brief introduction to the campaign system in Fire and Maneuver. So to begin a new campaign, you'll navigate to Start Game, then to Campaigns, and Play Campaign. You can actually host campaigns on multiplayer or on single player, and you can load saves here. If you notice your save isn't appearing, you can show the incompatible saves. Most of these should work, it just means that the game has updated since then, and that you may have some issues. So if a major update came out, one of your campaigns from 2 or 3 months ago might be a little outdated. You can navigate to the Crimean War on the tab on the left, as well as the Unification Wars of Germany. All 4 of these campaigns are free. The US Civil War campaigns come along with the American Civil War DLC, as well as the Japanese War, Boshin War, and Shimonoseki campaigns. For the purpose of today's video, we will show off the Caucasus Theater campaign. And so I will host it on single player. I'm going to pick a faction. Now for this campaign, I turned off the voice lines just so we didn't have to hear the voice talking over me. And I might even go into audio by hitting escape and reduce those sound effects as well. And so just for the purpose of this tutorial, but you can mess around with the music, sound effects, and voice lines. So we're going to scroll in and out to zoom in and out on the campaign. You're going to hold Shift and WASD to move quickly, and then regular WASD to move a little slowly on the campaign. I believe also Alt will slow down the camera even further, holding WASD. If you tap Escape one more time, you can also make sure under the campaign options, your clouds are on, and this looks nice. If it's distracting, I know some players, especially if you're playing a little more zoomed out, this might look a little more distracting, or if you're playing at a level like this, that might be annoying, so you can definitely turn those off if you want to. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'll have them off just so everything is as clear as possible. For battle speed, I'd recommend going and using dynamic battle speed, which is going to make the first few turns of a battle very quick, and then the remaining turns are going to slow down the animations. As for the campaign movement speed, I recommend fast. So with this campaign here, you can see we have several corps spread along our front line with Russia. If we want to view the political borders, we can click this button here and kind of see in purple where our territory is, and in green where the enemy is. We can actually notice we have a little base in their rear line in the Caucasus Mountains on the border there. And this corps here, we can click on it to read its name. This is the Caucasian Imamate, if I'm saying that correctly. We can open it up by clicking this button here and see which units are inside. So we have Chechenian tribals and other tribes as well. We can create a new division. When creating a new division, this costs a little bit of money. We've got 2,000. We're going to create a new division. It doesn't take up much at all. We can then start recruiting by clicking this button here and then choosing within our roster who we want to recruit into this army. We can also split this corps and edit it. So if we wanted to combine these 2 tribes together, we can order a split, and either we can move it to a brand new corps, or we can actually centralize onto one specific division, and then reopen this division here. And now all of them are going to be in this division. So that's not going to affect gameplay. That's just up to how you want to organize your army if you want to go with any specific organizational structure. Keep in mind there are unit limits in this campaign, which means that you can't buy an entire army of just one specific unit unless it's line infantry, but these special units, they have limitations. The next thing we'll look at here in this core screen is the weapon armory, or the armory system. Here we can actually buy weapons for these troops. So notice we have 1,950. We can buy some rifles. They're a little expensive, so I might just want to buy one. I'm going to left click on it and then left click who I want to give it to, like so. And you can see the rifle in his hand changed, and now he has the rifle icon. But that costs quite a lot of money. The next thing we can look at is once we have fought a battle in this game, if your troops perform well, you can actually right click on them and view a unit ability screen. And here you can customize your unit. If I want to remove his flaw, that will cost me 20 experience, which we can see in the star, to remove. Right now I have 0 experience because this unit hasn't been tested in combat yet. But once he fights a few battles and earns a few kills, we can start improving him and reworking him. You can actually strip down all of his traits if you want to start from scratch, but there is a maximum of 3. So if you wanted to remove Shock and Disorganized to give him 3 new perks entirely, that you can do. The next button we'll look at here is merging. If there are 2 corps on the same tile, and there can only be a maximum of 2 corps on one tile, we can merge those as well. And by the way, I can rename any of my divisions. So if the pronunciation was killing me up here, I could name this just tribals if I wanted to. Okay, and on the left of this panel as well, we can also see logistics. We can see I'm fully supplied, but if you notice the notification at the top of the screen here, somebody is not fully supplied, and that is this corps here. And you can see this supply crate with the down arrow, meaning this guy is going to start taking attrition. He is out of supply. And in this game, supply works in a very binary system. Either you have supply or you don't. So in this case, what we're going to do is use the supply map mode here. And we can actually notice a blind spot within the mountains where our supply can't get through. And this is because headquarters will distribute supply to all adjacent tiles, but the distribution of supply will slow down based on the terrain type. So I assume the terrain here is mountains, and that's going to slow down the supply. However, out here, there may be a few tiles called country, and supply travels a little easier out here. Now, this map in particular, because it is the Caucasus, almost everything is considered mountains. If the tile borders a mountain, it is considered mountainous. So here, to remedy this issue, either we can move him into a new tile, or we can open up this corps here and build a supply depot. Now, these are very expensive. It's $600. And so we're going to build that supply depot, and that will resolve all of our supply issues here. Now, in this campaign, I probably would have recommended just moving him to a new tile, but I did want to show that the supply system, you can remedy supply issues by spending money in that way. We can return back to the terrain map or the political map if you prefer. And you also have a terrain map mode here, and this allows you to roughly see a little bit on, like this tile here is more urban, okay, versus the tile to the right, which is more mountainous. And they're kind of color-coded in that way for you to see. And if there's not much color at all, it's open country. So you can notice a little spot where if I had some cavalry, I could run through this area. And speaking of that, most corps in the game will receive 10 movement points. However, and let's see if I can show this example. If I have a corps right here who has 1 cavalry in it, I can split this division, create a new cavalry corps, and this cavalry at the start of the next turn, and we'll end the turn to see what happens here. So bottom right is how you end the turn. Now it's Russia to begin. And I'm going to show you what happens now that we created a dedicated cavalry corps on the left here. We also get an event pop up, so support from Imam Shamil. So either we can accept cavalry support and get a minus 10% discount on light cavalry permanently and gain 6,000 manpower, or take a reduction cost in militia. So maybe I want to go for the cavalry because the Ottomans have good cavalry, so I'm going to click that, and we can see the manpower jumped up. And we also got another event that we got war investments. Now, in this case, I haven't shown the policy system yet, so we can't complete our research, but that is quite a good option. So in this case, I'll just take the cash. And that is one of our new event systems. Now we can notice when I click on my cavalry, he actually has 12 movement points. And so if you wanted to create a cavalry corps that could provide, let's say, scouting by riding close to the front and revealing this fog of war, you could do that, and he could move a little bit further and get out of danger and retreat past the zone that an enemy can pursue. So cavalry corps can be useful to attach to the side of an army. When going into a battle, so long as the 2 corps are on the same tile, if I attack with 1 corps, it will automatically bring in the other. If, however, this cavalry corps was on a new tile that was adjacent to this, if I go into the battle, he's going to have to be called in as a reinforcement, meaning he'll come in on the second day of combat. And therefore, if you ever have a case where you have a large army as a reinforcement, you may want to stall for the first day of combat. To know what day you're on, in the top right of the screen during a battle, it will tell you day 1 or day 2 or day 3, whatever you're on. And the little sun icon will progressively move to the right as the day continues on. And at the very start of the second day, those reinforcements will arrive. And this works as well in multiplayer, the multiplayer campaigns as well. So we can see here the Russians have, again, this kind of front line here, and they're actually approaching the city of Kars. So one thing we may want to do is go into Kars. And another thing we may want to do is split this corps here, maybe put in the infantry, and then grab that infantry and call this the Kars Garrison. And this way we can leave this corps behind, and in the following turns we can always take second corps, build some new units within this corps, and then launch our own offensive, and now we have a garrison. These cities don't automatically start with garrisons, so it's important that you do that yourself. The AI, on the other hand, especially on harder difficulties, will automatically start with dedicated garrisons. The next thing I'll show are all of the UI options in the top left of the screen. So here we can see that we can select a policy, and this is a very important part of the game. Originally, in the first iteration of Fire and Maneuver, you could really get away with ignoring these, but now we can see, just looking at our war enthusiasm, we only have 10% enthusiasm, the enemy has 35%. This war enthusiasm will increase or decrease the production value of your objectives. And the objectives are the tiles marked with green tags. Notice I'm gaining $146, 183 manpower, and 1 influence every single turn. And these correlate with my 3 stats at the top of the screen. If my enthusiasm is higher, all of these values are going to be higher. So you can see here that despite Alexandropol, or however you pronounce that, being a level 1 objective, and Kars being a level 1 objective, he's actually earning more on his objective than mine is because he has more enthusiasm. To gain enthusiasm, you must win battles and conquer territory. So it's important not to just kind of sit and retain this defensive line if you know your enthusiasm is lower, because the enemy is going to build up faster than you. So it does encourage you to push into enemy territory and to make some gains. We can see here on the right, these are our main objectives, and if we click on them, the camera will bring us to this main objective. By conquering a main objective, that will increase enthusiasm further. To go back to what we were originally looking at is the policy screen. With this low enthusiasm, other ways we can improve it are with our policies. So you'll notice here under discipline, our furlough policy, no furloughs, troops can't go home. And so this results in minus 15% enthusiasm. We get +2 recovery speed, so that means if we lose a battle, our troops will recover faster. So if we have 1,200 men here, and they go down to 200 men, they're actually going to recover 2 companies faster at a time, meaning these guys are going to be back up to full strength much quicker because they can't go home. So we may want to switch this to the medium standard furlough. We're also no longer going to receive 5% additional experience gain. We're going to lose experience gain if we're sending our troops home. But at least we're going to get rid of that malice of minus 15% enthusiasm. So that could be a good choice. And you could go to extensive furloughs if you do like those options. However, that is really going to slow down your recovery gain on your core, but it's going to massively improve enthusiasm. So that's up to you as a player what trade-offs you want. These policies don't get progressively better, they just give you different bonuses and drawbacks. So it's important to not look at these as linear progression trees to go down, but more policies that you can enable depending on the situation of your campaign. And so you have 3 discipline policies and 3 logistics policies to choose from. Telegraphs ultimately are going to make your research faster. Railroads will make recruitment faster. Hospitals reduce the fatality rate in battles. Furlough will improve your enthusiasm. Spirit rations also improves enthusiasm, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you get a little bit enthusiasm there. You do lose a lot of experience gain if your guys are a little drunk on the job. And so you do have to watch out for that. And it's going to cost a lot of army maintenance. So with the spirit rations, the main thing you're looking for is to get that extra war enthusiasm, but you're taking a big sacrifice here. However, if you were to stack extended furloughs and getting your troops real drunk, then you're going to get plus 30% war enthusiasm, and you could be losing battles, but they don't care. They're too drunk and happy to be bothered by that. So if you knew you were losing in a campaign, this could be a good extreme way. You're not going to get a lot of experience. You're going to lose minus 5% and minus 50. So you're going to lose minus 20% experience gain, so you won't be able to level your troops up, but they're going to be too drunk to care about the losing war. Foraging is going to help your supply issue, and so it'll reduce attrition rates and your army maintenance, whether you go down or up there. And the last newest thing we've introduced is the doctrine system. You have deterrent warfare, mobile warfare, and attrition warfare. Mobile is good for encirclements and quick movements. Attrition is good for lots of troops and lots of militia. And deterrent warfare is more defensive and artillery focused. So in this case, if the Caucasus has so many forts, I may want to take deterrent warfare because the first policy I get is to increase all of my forts by 1. So if I click on the city of Kars, and you can notice it's a walled settlement, if I click on the fort strength here, it's a level 4. If I unlock that policy, all of my forts' max level goes up to level 5. You can actually siege forts in this game too, but I'll get to that in a moment. So to finish off the policies here, we can only research one of these at a time. So maybe we want railroads, or we're going to cancel that and maybe go for the fort policy. Now this will take 4 turns to get. If we don't like that it'll take 4 turns, we would need to go and establish some telegraph lines. And that will reduce all of our research time. But that's up to you. So now that we understand the policy system, we can look at these remaining tabs at the top of the screen. The political influence here is something that you're going to gain naturally each turn. So you can see our base influence gain is 5, and then from our objectives, we actually gain an additional 6. If we want to improve the influence that our objectives are providing, as well as the cash and manpower, we can actually click on those and order an upgrade. The upgrades will get even more expensive every time we do it, but we can get an objective from level 1 to level 5 as the max level. By level 5, you're spending easily over $1,000 on those upgrades, which might be difficult if you're spending a lot of this money on buying new troops and weapons. So it's a balance that you'll have to make between economy and military in this game. But you can see here, if we just click this button, in 1 turn that will be upgraded. And then the next turn, we will see that our war funding, this objective at cars, is going to generate more revenue. So that is something to look at. And we can also see our expenses of how much each core costs. And so next turn, we're going to earn 3,300, and this is especially because we get a government salary as well. And to go back to the influence tab, you can spend influence on numerous things. I can use influence to request some extra funds, get some extra reserves, or do public relations campaigns. And so we can run propaganda, and we can invite war journalists. However, in order to invite war journalists, we need to go onto the telegraphs and to put up some telegraph lines. This allows us to invite war journalists. Now, war journalists will increase the amount of enthusiasm you receive from winning battles. It'll multiply it, but it also multiplies it if you lose. So war journalists don't care about you and your campaign. They care about reporting what the facts are at home. And so if you lose a battle, they're going to tell everyone about it, and your enthusiasm will tank down. So you have to be careful about when the good time is to invite those war journalists, because every time you do, if you lose battles, that can actually hurt you more than it helped you. So it is important to time when you invite war journalists. If you know you're going to have a string of victories coming up, that could really help your enthusiasm and improve your economy. And running propaganda is actually going to grant you additional enthusiasm, but it's going to cost 20 influence and 1,000 cash. You can see we're only at 16 influence, so we can't run propaganda campaigns. But if you ever find you have a lot of influence left over and a little bit of cash, getting an extra 5% war enthusiasm now and then could be nice. And so that is how the political influence screen works. I went a little bit over how the finance screen works here. You can just see your income and expenses. And the final thing we'll look at is the manpower. So this tells you how many troops you have in reserve to recruit from. You actually gain 3,600 as just a regular salary. And then you're gaining an additional 1,000 from the objectives. We can click on this and bring up our core management screen and see all of the core that we have currently deployed, and all of the core that we can actually send to deployment. So the Anatolian Corps is not on the map right now, but we can spend 15 influence to deploy these soldiers without spending a single dime. So this is a free core that we can bring in, but it does cost influence. And you can only bring in 1 at a time. And this is going to take 5 turns. If we had a better rail policy, this would take less turns. Something you can also do is recruit into these reserves. And so when they get called in, they come much stronger, and the recruitment time is 0. So you could really build this core up, and then within 5 turns, everything arrives. So that is the benefit of bringing in reserve core. But once that core comes in, that's going to be a huge financial strain. So be prepared for that once all of these troops arrive, that you have enough money. So here we are in the Sevastopol campaign. I just figured this was a more straightforward example to show the sieges. We can see the enemy corps are holding Malakoff and Sevastopol, and we can not attack this army here. If we right-click, it says, cannot attack a fort that has walls that aren't breached. And so if we're wondering how to breach those walls, what you'll notice here is in the bottom left, we need to order a bombardment with these cannons. So if we click on that, what you'll also notice is that all of this manpower at the top, we're going to lose some of it. So we just lost 6,000 manpower from ordering that bombardment. Every time you do a bombardment, it's going to check your levels of attrition, and it's going to subtract that from manpower. Now, attrition is just a basic stat that's running in the background. that you can't really see. It's something that determines if troops are out of supply at the end of the turn, if they're going to lose men. But if you do receive events throughout the game, or even your hospital policy, I think reduces attrition, that minus 10%, that's just going to give you some passive bonuses toward siege warfare or if you ever got encircled. So with the campaign like Crimea, you may want to go down the hospital policy to really reduce your attrition rates because you're going to be doing lots of bombardments and utilizing a lot of manpower. We can now click on the enemy fort and see that they are down to 5 strength instead of 6. However, the enemy here can also decide to repair. If they open their core up, this button here allows them to rebuild those walls that we brought down. But that costs them a lot of money as well as attrition. So this siege will be a back and forth of bombardments and repairs as we're both suffering attrition. So that there is not a standstill or a stalemate, what you could also do is utilize this tile on the right, or to bring up an additional core to do multiple bombardments in one turn. Each core can only do 1 bombardment per turn, but you'll notice here this siege has 3 tiles to bombard from, but only 2 tiles to repair from. So this campaign is all about lining up as many core as possible and ordering as many bombardments as you can, whilst protecting your rear lines from Russian counterattacks that could come from the north. Once you've done enough bombardments, you will be able to right-click on this province and launch the attack, and that is effectively how you breach the walls and conduct a siege. So that is all for campaigns. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.